How does Apple get a 16x return on their marketing spend? This means for every $5 they put into their marketing machine, they get 80 million back. It's like they're printing money, only it's legal. But before you rush to Google Apple marketing strategy, here's the catch. Most businesses are out there throwing money at ads like it's a wishing well, but instead of profits, they're getting this. So what's the secret? Some ancient marketing school passed down from Steve Jobs? A backroom deal with the algorithm overlords? Or maybe a superpower that lets them sell computer caster wheels for $700? No. The truth is, most people measure marketing ROI completely wrong. In this video, I'm breaking down why the common calculation of ROI can be misleading, the biggest mistakes businesses make, and what the smartest marketers I know do to actually scale without setting their budgets on fire. Spoiler alert, there's more to it than 7th grade level math equations. Let's get into it. At its core, ROI is the ratio between two things. The first is LTV, or lifetime value, the total cash an average customer leaves in your bank account throughout the relationship with you, starting from their first purchase till they ditch your product and ghost you forever. Calculating LTV is pretty easy. Take the money a customer spends, subtract the costs of serving that customer, including your taxes, and multiply the result by how long they stick around. You got LTV. Second number is CAC, or customer acquisition cost, which is how much money you need to spend to convince that customer to give your product a chance. This includes all the money you throw on ads, SEO, email campaigns, sky banners, carrier pigeons, you name it. To calculate CAC, divide your marketing spend by the number of customers you acquired. Boom, done. The golden rule is that your LTV needs to be bigger than your CAC, otherwise you're basically pouring money down the drain. A 3-to-1 LTV CAC ratio is the typical goal for a SaaS, and the advice you'll get is always the same. Increase your LTV, lower your CAC, as if it's that easy. Part of why Apple has such an insane ratio is the whole ecosystem of hardware and software products that codepend on one another. It costs relatively little to convince new customers to give their product a try, and the profit is insane once they get locked into the ecosystem and go buying Apple's products forever. So much of what successful business owners do is strive to find ways to increase this ratio. Increasing the LTV part isn't easy, but it's pretty straightforward. Get people to spend more money on the stuff that costs you the least to deliver. Smaller companies can increase LTV in various ways. Last year I spent an hour chatting with Patrick Posner, who uses Freemius to detect and focus on his most lucrative audience. He increases LTV by serving an ideal customer who drives 60% of his sales and demands little to no customer service. Another developer we worked with named Tobias increases LTV by tweaking his pricing plans to see which plan gets people to buy more. Matt Cromwell is religious about properly onboarding new customers, because he found that's the #1 activity that cultivates loyalty. This increases LTV by multiplying the number of times his customers renew their subscriptions. Another cool thing Matt did is hire a dedicated employee to recover customers at a value worth several times more than the cost of the salary he pays that employee. Another LTV win. Then you have the task of lowering your CAC, which is more nuanced and complicated than growing your LTV. In a sense, your LTV helps you define your CAC because it puts a cap on how much you can spend on acquiring new customers. If your LTV is 2K, you know you shouldn't spend more than 1K on CAC. All good stuff. But what if the money you spend on marketing fails to acquire customers, or fails to acquire enough of them? Simply spending your money responsibly is not a marketing strategy. What if you're doing the math and your business is broken, unprofitable, stagnating, or gathering unsatisfactory profits? Here's where the numbers can easily trick you. Look at this example. I just recently saw this data in a video by Exposure Ninja. What this table tries to offer is a calculation of income per marketing channel, but you'll quickly see how problematic this task is. Just take a look at row 3 of this table. Over a quarter of this client's revenue comes from direct visitors. These are people who type the website's name directly into their browsers, as if it's 2005 and they still believe in bookmarks. Meanwhile, down in row 4, social media looks like it's doing about as much for their revenue as a motivational poster in a sales office. Less than 1% of customers come from that channel. So, should we just cancel social media and funnel everything into PPC? Not so fast. The real question is, how did all of these direct visitors even know the website exists? Telepathy? A divine vision? No, chances are they saw a tweet, a LinkedIn post, or something that nudged them towards the site long before they typed in that URL. Even weirder, these direct visitors converted at an absurdly high rate. It's almost as if they walked into a store, pointed at an item as if they were a brainless zombie, and slammed their credit card on the counter before the cashier could even say hello. They didn't just land on the site, they showed up ready to buy. So you might think, fine, let's just track impressions, clicks, and likes to measure how much awareness social media is generating. But here's the catch. Just because someone likes your content doesn't mean they're buying your product. I mean, we've all seen videos of Apple's AR headset, and I don't know about you, but the only AR I'm buying is paper post-its. Engagement in marketing content does not equal conversions. One way to solve this ambiguity is called lift testing. Simply pausing a specific marketing channel for a limited period to measure how the intermission impacts sales. If you see a temporary dip while tracking this data, you can attribute conversions to that channel. The downside is that you might not be able to measure the lag between the pause and the dip, and you might be risking a well-performing channel by disrupting consistency. Another way to solve attribution is to double down on first-party data. Unlike third-party data that gets disrupted by privacy regulations and technical hiccups like Wi-Fi at a music festival, first-party data can be responsibly attributed to specific marketing assets, like clicks within websites, landing pages, and email campaigns. This could be interactive content like quizzes and polls, or a straight-up purchase or sign-up to a newsletter. There's also the option of implementing direct response triggers, like unique promo codes offered by your affiliate marketers, or the custom links to different marketing channels which allow you to estimate which ones are driving the most interest. The all-time champion method of collecting first-party data is offering a free version of your product, like Slack does. Free software is free of the friction involved in a paid conversion. It helps you onboard high-quality leads to a platform where you have full access to data. And then, a SaaS product like Slack uses the first-party data to magnetize correspondence towards a commitment with data-optimized upsells inside the UX. But you don't need to be Slack to do this. Any form or amount of first-party data is better than being in the dark. These practices will give you a leg up in optimizing your marketing ROI. But there's one major problem that most data can't solve. And if you still believe that conversion in large numbers necessarily means big success, let me introduce you to Clubhouse, the audio-based social media app that shot from 0 to 100 million users in a year, got $4 billion in valuation, and then vanished faster than my dedication to my New Year's resolution. This demonstrates that even colossal numbers don't tell the full story of a business. Despite all the data we're overwhelmed with nowadays, we still can't attribute most of it to sustainable growth or success. So, what can we do instead?
I honestly think that the numbers can blind you. So what I really do, and what I think like everyone should do, is just like knock on people's doors.
This is Goran Mirkovic, the CMO at Freemius. Because resonating with customers is more about social dynamics and psychology than numbers, what you really need to do is communicate with them directly and collect qualitative data.
So a plumber, for instance, like talks to his like audience, like he does a great job and like establishes a relationship, and so that's why they refer him to other customers. Like in a digital place, it's basically the same, right? If you frequently talk with your audience, if you survey them, if you listen to them, if you adapt to their needs, offer them value, go the extra mile for them, like the same thing will happen. They will literally champion you.
The highest ROI brands in our industry still rely on direct, one-on-one conversations with their audience because they reveal exactly what made them buy, what messaging resonated, and what pain points they needed to solve. Ritis, the co-founder of Omnisend, schedules at least a couple of one-hour meetings with his customers per week. Tamara Omerovic leverages community insights to drive marketing ROI, but she takes it one step further. Tamara collects these insights and turns them into low-cost, high-impact marketing content.
Instead of writing a typical blog post, we actually create a survey and ask people to share their experiences and opinions. We do a statistical analysis of the sample and we feature the best quotes in the final article.
To reduce the cost of collecting these insights, she developed a scalable process. She composed surveys periodically and reached out to customers using automation. It took time for people to catch onto it, but sooner or later customers were not only cooperating, but competing to be showcased in the company's marketing materials. And a wider audience got hooked onto the content too. People enjoyed reading the real-life case studies from peers in their industry, some of which were well-known experts in the field. In today's AI-powered landscape where marketing content is spewed out like water from a fire hose, customers are leaning heavily towards actual people and their real lived experiences. Even Google's EEAT update prioritizes experience, expertise, authority, and trust. This means user-generated content is not only cheaper to produce, but more performant than faceless content, increasing your ROI on this content even further. As business guru Daniel Priestley points out, faceless brands are in decline. If your marketing is struggling to convert, one major reason might be that it lacks personality.
Professor Brian Cox has more followers than CERN. We can see Richard Branson has orders of magnitude more followers than Virgin. We can see Elon's got more followers than NASA.
However, when your marketing is built around your personality as a founder or your company's unique story, the equation changes. You're no longer competing on product features alone. You're competing on emotional connection and trust. This shift has massive ROI implications. Customers who resonate with your story and values become more than just buyers. They become fans. Fans stick around longer, buy more frequently, and advocate for you. And if your current business sunsets or pivots, that loyal following will still support whatever you do next. Brand equity pays dividends for years to come. The skill of crafting such a personality is the domain of brand marketing specialists. And this is what former LinkedIn executive, serial entrepreneur, and brand expert Lindsay Chipkama has to say about it.
Today, we have gotten so used to everything that matters can be measured and everything that can, if it's not measurable, it must not matter. First, you have to seek to understand. Who is this for? Why are we doing this? What makes this business unique? You've got to have the strategy first. You've got to have the high level overview and understanding of where you are and where you can be before you can ever get into tactics.
This doesn't mean you should scrap an existing marketing machine and start over. But it does mean that if you're in this for the long game, your personality and vision are essential for building trust and visibility. Don't think of your brand as a layer added on top of what you've already built. Think of it as an answer to why you're doing this in the first place, and let that answer shape everything you put out. In the end, products can be replaced. Personal brands and authentic stories can't, and that's where the real marketing ROI lives. My last point has to do with the frequency and consistency of your content. Because even if you're investing $90 out of your $100 LTV profits on crazy impressive ad campaigns, or if you're spending all your money on blasting the hell out of a specific channel, it's still worth nothing if it doesn't generate a sense of omnipresence that's so important to online businesses today. Can your customers spend a full day learning about you and your business from all the relevant up-to-date content that's available online? Even if people do see an ad you paid for and then Google you and all they get is your LinkedIn profile pic and a marine biologist that goes by the same name, you won't be converting a whole lot of customers. Marketing expert Margaret Kelsey calls the process of generating an online presence saturation.
Are you saturating channels that your target audience already lives in frequently and consistently with a message that resonates? We're not going to call that brand. We're not going to call that awareness. Sometimes I call it saturation. But are you showing up in the channels that you know your target audience already lives in frequently, consistently with a message that resonates?
Another way to approach saturation is to outmarket your competitors. If they're posting once a week, you post twice. If they're showing up on one channel, you dominate 3. Be the overachiever your high school teachers always wanted you to be. Before we sign off and before I lose my voice because I have a bit of a cold today, let's run through the points we've made in this video. Marketing ROI is typically referred to as the ratio between your average customer's lifetime value and your customer's acquisition cost. This ratio goes a long way in measuring the monetary success of your business efforts, including your marketing. However, the business landscape is volatile, and when things go wrong and you can't find ROI, these numbers do little to help you out of the mud. What we've covered extensively in this video are practices that make ROI work. This includes practices designed to increase your lifetime value by keeping your customers engaged with your business for longer periods, getting them to pay or buy more stuff through strategic pricing, or reducing the cost of serving them. It also includes reducing your customer acquisition costs by investing in marketing activities that convert more customers per dollar spent. However, determining which marketing content is most effective is hard. Techniques like lift testing and first-party data collection help clarify the real impact of different channels. But the most ROI will come from combining this quantitative data with the 4 practices I shared. Collect qualitative data by listening to your customers and trying to understand from them what marketing activities work and which don't. Use automation and one-on-one calls to ask questions like what marketing channels converted them, what they appreciate the most about your service, and what language they use that you should replicate in your marketing. Leverage user-generated content. It's not expensive to create, it builds your online community, and it makes your marketing more authentic and engaging, possibly converting more customers for a lower price. Invest in personality and brand. Learn how to tell your authentic story, a story that reflects in everything you do, from customer support to marketing content. Instead of just converting customers behind a faceless operation, put yourself in front of your audience and build a fan following that will cheer for you even if you fail. The consistency and diversity of your activity counts. Produce 5 hours of genuinely useful content across 11 encounters on 4 platforms and see how your audience responds. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video and nearly the end of my voice, I'd be so happy to hear what questions you have and what content you'd like us to produce next. And if this is the type of content that you find useful, consider subscribing. We have some awesome stuff coming as soon as my voice gets a rest.